So hello, everyone. Welcome to our water cooler today. We are recording this, so if you don't want your face on camera, which will only happen if your microphone is on, so turn your microphones off, please. Um, Michael Notaro is going to talk about his work with rural communities through his Wisconsin, through his grant-funded, I assume, work. And we are happy to welcome him here. He has done some really great presentations for us on his work with camps for youth. And I think this is super exciting that he has another project to talk about. And also, you did run a local SRS recently, which is also exciting. So, Dr. Notaro has been doing some great work in Globe. So, thank you very much for coming and talking to us today about the work that you're doing. And I know a lot of us have rural communities that we work with. So I think that this will be really great for us to learn from each other when working with rural communities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Michael.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And whoops. Are you able to see that okay?
Yes, we're all set.
All right, great. Thank you. I'm going to be speaking about the Wisconsin Rural Partnership Institute. I'm Michael Notaro, the director of the Nelson Institute Center for Climatic Research at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. The Wisconsin RPI, or Rural Partnership Institute, is funded through USDA NEFA. And as I mentioned, a USDA NEFA grant has been supporting this work. It was advocated by Senator Baldwin for a consortium of institutes for rural partnerships among 3 different land grants. UW-Madison is one of them, University of Vermont, and also Auburn. This funding started around December of 2022, and it goes through the end of next year. And I'll be talking a little bit about the Wisconsin RPI component of that. In particular, the main focus of our RPI is to make better weather data collection infrastructure and support to make data useful for everyday lives, especially in rural communities. And
Michael,
also, yep.
Are you on a different slide than the first one? Because we can only see your first slide.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's try this again.
Oh, we got the primary RPI projects now.
How's this? Can you see the Rural Partnership Institute award?
Yes.
All right. I will present it this way. All right. Sorry about that. So our focus, better weather data collection infrastructure and support to make the data useful for everyday lives, particularly in rural communities. And then also community-based multidisciplinary projects with local partners that explore novel solutions to challenges for rural communities. Here's basically a summary of some of the 9 different primary projects through the Wisconsin Rural Partnership Institute. We have WiscoNet, which is Wisconsin's environmental mesonet. So this allowed for the creation of our state's first mesonet. The Rural Livability Project focused on economics and resources in the state, improving the Central Sands groundwater quality, funding for the Wisconsin State Climatology Office, community health workers, a bridge between extension and rural healthcare, connecting cultural values and indigenous research for food systems resilience, preparing Wisconsin's rural communities for amplified weather extremes, promoting family-centered and family school community mental health support, and the Wisconsin Rural Scholars Program. Of these projects, I'm involved in the Preparing Wisconsin Rural Communities and also the Wisconsin State Climatology Office. So that's the part that I'll probably speak more of. So traditionally, we've had a state climatology office for many decades, but it was largely unfunded. This has allowed the recent funding through USDA has allowed a large expansion of our office. At this point, Steve Vavris is the director of the office. They're state climatologists. There's about 8 people in the office that are funded now, so it's expanded quite a bit. The office collects, analyzes, and shares climate information with our communities while leading the way in climate science education and research. There's a number of partnerships it's involved in. It's housed within the Nelson Institute, part of the Center for Climatic Research. And there's support from the Division of Extension and also the Department of Atmospheric and Oceanic Sciences. And some of the organizations that they collaborate with is the WISCONet, the Wisconsin Initiative on Climate Change Impacts, the Midwest Regional Climate Hub, USDA Midwest Climate Hub, and the American Association of State Climatologists. The project that I'm also active with is the Preparing Wisconsin's Rural Communities for Amplified Weather Extremes. And this is the project where my GLOBE components fit in, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The goal here is as extreme weather becomes increasingly common, we aim to increase the capacity of rural Wisconsin communities to deal with these amplified weather events, working with emergency managers and public health officials, with schools and rural youth and agricultural advisors, with the main focus on the driftless region of our state, the Central Sands, and northern Wisconsin. And I'm going to outline within the Rural Partnership Institute, this is the work that I'm doing specific to GLOBE. I'm going to outline some of the goals of that. And then on the next slide, I'll summarize some of the work that's been done on it. First goal is provide professional development for K-12 teachers, science curriculum, scientific equipment, and stipends for teachers to support the success of Wisconsin's rural education system. Second is to transform Wisconsin's rural youth into citizen scientists, actively applying the scientific method with hands-on locally relevant research projects led by students and teachers. The third goal, support STEM knowledge, enthusiasm, and pursuit of science degrees and careers across rural communities, which in our state are typically economically disadvantaged. Deepen scientific understanding of local to regional climatic phenomena, including meteorological and climatic extremes in support of climate resilient communities in the rural communities of Wisconsin. And finally, advancing the Wisconsin idea by applying the expertise of UW scientists to Wisconsin rural schools through partnership building and provisions of key resources in support of prosperity for rural communities. So that's the goals of the activities that I'm doing, the GLOBE-centered activities. The last slide I want to show is really a summary of what type of activities I've been specifically doing. Back around November 2024, I ran a GLOBE professional development workshop working with the New Lisbon Middle School and High School. So that was the first rural school that we started working with. After that, in both February and October, we ran a multi-day GLOBE workshops for the Nakusa High School. That was the second rural school we worked with. And in October last year, I returned to the Nakusa School and we worked with some of the kids with some hands-on science activities. After that, the third school we worked with is the Wanawak Union Middle and High School in May of 2025 with another GLOBE professional development workshop. For each of the workshops, what I typically do is provide basically a menu of the different protocols and options. The schools decide what they're interested in, and then we tailor it to kind of center it around those activities. The Genesee Lake School, now that one's the most recent that I've been supporting. In January and February and March, we had 3 different workshops. They wanted to know all the protocols. They had 13 staff members, which I've never had such a large group from one school. And it's a great group because they're in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, and they have both a day school and it's a residential school. A lot of kids with special needs going there. So that's a great school to work with. Now, in recent times, so last month, we ran a student research symposia in which we brought together 2 of our rural schools, New Lisbon and Nakusa. They brought 60 of their students to Upham Woods Outdoor Learning Center. And we had 60 students come present 18 GLOBE posters. And we had judges, and the event was great. I was told the kids were left with smiles on their face, so that was great. And then the other thing that we're doing under the Rural Partnership Institute is I was able to convince the RPI to fund my Nature's Navigator STEM camp. So I run 3 STEM camps for autistic kids that are run based on GLOBE ideas. And they agreed that this upcoming year that they would fund that. So In September, October, we're going to have that camp. And again, that incorporates both Globe and also incorporates some outdoor fun too at the Outdoor Learning Center. So that's kind of summarizing the work on RPI. Again, it's a huge UW initiative. I'm just a small part of it, but this is the Globe work that I'm doing to support some of that RPI effort. So any questions?
Yeah, I had in the chat,
Yeah.
Michael, about what's the grade level for Genesee Lake? Is it a K-12 or is it
Yeah,
younger?
they have all age groups there. I think they even
Because
have like young adults there too, but it's primarily, I think, mostly going to be like elementary to high school age kids.
you
Um,
said this is one with 13 participants for
uh,
the.
yeah, they have both teachers,
Mhm.
special education aides, and also farm aides. They have a huge outdoor property, natural space. They have gardens and everything there. So it's just like a perfect place for Globe.
Oh,
Um,
that sounds awesome. Wow,
yeah,
thank you. That's so cool.
Yeah, and I particularly am passionate about supporting the neurodiverse school groups, so that was definitely one to work with. They're part of the My Paths program, and Richardson School is one of those. And Richardson School is a school that has largely autistic students, and I've been working with them for a year. I went in each month, and we did hands-on science activities, and we ran some field trips. And then this is kind of even a larger school, so out in Genesee. The nice thing about the Genesee one is they have a huge outdoor space. Richardson School's got nothing but a small parking lot, so it's not a lot to work with there.
Can I ask another question on this?
Yeah.
So one of the things, and Tina can speak of this, is this learning progression, this idea of doing something in third grade and adding a little bit more in fourth and fifth and sixth, etc. And I was just wondering if you were familiar with the learning progressions or if you think that could be beneficial or helpful in a school like that where you have you have all these kids in all these grade levels.
That would probably be useful because a lot of times I worked with individual schools. I did in Beloit. We worked with both the middle schools and the high schools with the idea of transitioning concepts and building on it. The problem is in Beloit, because of financial reasons, two of their middle schools were closed and they got basically shoved all their students into these two buildings, and they cut a lot of the programming, and they couldn't work with Globe anymore. So that didn't help. So I haven't had a lot of chance to work across the full grade spectrum. So any kind of thoughts on that is always, or any documents or recommendations are appreciated on that.
Yeah, Tina probably can direct you to those learning progression links. And if
Yeah.
nothing else, the educators can look at them and kind of, you kind of promotes that interactive, grade to grade to grade level learning. So
Yeah,
good.
I always like to point to the teachers to the NGSS guide with Globe, and I tell them, if tonight read the 180-page document. You can see how it fits into the curriculum. But I basically tell them it's a good way to convince your principal that I'm not trying to get you to work on something that's irrelevant to your curriculum concepts or the science expectations and standards.
Kristen.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you give them sort of a menu of the options. What tend to be the most common protocols that the teachers pick to do?
A lot of times they like atmosphere in particular and hydrosphere. There's been less on like soils and also with biosphere in particular. There's been some schools like at the student research symposium I ran, one of the two schools, like almost every one of the students worked on a soil project. So there was like literally probably 14 soil posters. And I've never seen that before because a lot of times the schools are like, oh, maybe not. But some of these rural schools, I mean, that's a big deal. Both the vegetation and the soil is a big deal. So yeah, they got into like the soil fertility and they went nuts on that.
Yeah, I feel like that's one that does not get used very often
Uh-huh.
in general.
Yeah. Yeah, at my STEM camps for the autistic kids that I work with, sometimes I've tried to bring in soil activities and using augers and whatnot. And some of the kids really loved it. And other kids are like, "Oh, thanks, I'm not touching that." So I got to be a little careful with that particular group of people that I know he's into digging into the dirt.
Yeah.
But a lot of times these schools, the rural schools, are kind of all over the soil. So yeah, they get interested in that.
Is there a lot of agriculture in the areas where your rural schools are?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I talk about different projects they could do in terms of looking at like infiltration of nitrates into water bodies and stuff like that. So yeah.
Other questions?
I don't have a question, but also I just put in the link to the learning progressions, Michael.
Okay.
For atmosphere and hydro, they're all spread out by the different spheres, but also in there is the nature notes. I don't know if you're familiar with what nature notes are, but even those teachers that, especially if they have an outdoor space, just, on a short day, taking them out and having them, do an observation with the nature
Yeah.
notes would be what a bonus for the kids to do something like that. Anyway, it's in there. So
Yeah, the group at the Richardson School that I work with, well, I think the hands-on science activities really worked well. There was a lot of kind of concern about from the school teachers about how it was going to go, but then after, they're worried about the behavior of the kids, and I had no problem. None of the kids had any behavioral issue for me, so it was not an issue. It was fun. I think they really enjoyed it, so they looked forward and they're like, when's the science guy coming back next month? So that was fun. So I'm looking forward to the Genesee Lake School and working with them. I think that's going to be a fun experience.
So, Michael, we have updated the atmosphere learning progressions, so I can send you the links to those. We updated them last year. So the ones in the link that Tracy shared, the atmosphere ones have been updated.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I wanted to just, oh, sorry. I wanted to just reinforce Tracy's suggestion that you look at the nature notes because I'd be really interested to know, you said you were concerned about, or the teachers were concerned about behavioral issues. The nature notes approach really helps to slow kids down
Yeah.
and give them an opportunity to observe quietly before they start making their own notes and so forth. So it's a really cool protocol. It's not really a protocol, but a approach.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if we do have any time, I would love to. I know that you've presented on your work with kids in the camp before. I think I've heard you present on that topic before. Um, do you have like a thumbnail from a sort of a behavioral or an approach perspective, like how Globe works with kids on the spectrum? Like, are there, like just a super small synopsis? I mean, do you have approaches that work well with kids in certain,
Yeah.
who have certain, yeah,
I,
proclivity?
I find that it's a very effective method for neurodiverse kids. I've been running for 5 years, 3 different STEM camps for autistic kids, bringing globe concepts, and in particular with the STEM camps, breaking up into smaller groups, a lot of visuals, low expectation where you don't like require like participation. If a kid wants to do something else, it's not like school, you're not demanding on them. So I try to get a lot of information ahead of time. So what is their stimulus needs and what's kind of what gets them, what can lead to challenging behaviors. And we try to tailor the camps around those so that we provide a environment that is relaxing and calming for them. So sometimes we'll do stuff like yoga and some social activities. And so we try to keep it kind of a calm environment. But the globe activities, like hands-on nature-based learning, I think for any neurodiverse kid and pretty much any neurotypical kid, this is the way to go. So I could describe, like, for example, with the Richardson School, when I first went there, it's mostly autistic youth there. But in particular, this is a school where they kids that are in the public school system that are having trouble go to the Richardson School for a certain number of weeks, and then they come back again. So a lot of them have pretty strong behavioral challenges that they're dealing with, and to the point where they have like padded barriers that the teachers have available if the kids attack them and stuff like that. Like when I first showed up for a tour, there was a kid like pulling the teacher's hair, and kids running down the halls trying to elope and get out of the building. So yeah, this definitely happens. But I went in the rooms and I worked with them on these hands-on science activities, engaged them, and made sure they knew that like I personally cared about each one of them. There was like zero behavioral issues. Same thing with the camps. Before I ran the camps the first time, I was concerned, are the kids going to fight? Are they going to have issue going outside because of the heat, the insects, whatnot? How well are they going to get along with each other? We even had training. We had brought in an organization that trained about how to work with autistic kids, and they talked a lot about worst case scenarios. When I started running the camps, kids got along fine. They started playing outside the camp. There was pretty much no behavioral issues. As soon as you kind of made it a kind of environment where they're not under stress, where they're not being like forced to do something, where they're doing stuff, hands-on, getting out, doing some nature stuff, coming back in, doing some exploratory work, the behavior issues disappear. That's what school's supposed to be, not just for neurodiverse kids, for anybody.
Right.
Because I hear about from my own son when I hear about this, what he goes to school, and a lot of times in the science classes, they're just lecture based. I'm like, no, that's not how you teach. Doesn't work.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I'm glad to talk to anyone more about that. We're always looking to expand our camps. We're looking to try to get funded for starting a fourth one at Elder Leopold Nature Center. I think it would be great to be able to expand it beyond the state at some point, other communities.
It's a great model. I love the model. And just kids outside, right? And doing things. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing the change in kids. I'm always, no matter how many times I see it happen, right? I mean, we took our tent and we had middle schoolers, and immediately, you get this reaction of, I am not touching that. I am not doing that. I am not, that is not for me. And then 10 minutes later, they're sorting macroinvertebrates like a pro,
Yeah.
and it's just, wait a minute, what about this? And they're like, oh, I don't really like living things, but these two are similar, so they should go in the same ice cube tray.
Uh-huh.
It's just amazing how that happens every single time. And it never gets old.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one thing that came to my mind that I'm kind of interested in. There's a school that we did some globe training for as part of a larger workshop, and that was like a Milwaukee Sign Language school. I'd be fascinated by the idea of trying to incorporate globe into that kind of community. I've not experienced with sign language. I knew a little bit when my son was nonverbal when he was a kid, but so he's highly verbal now. I joke that he went from being nonverbal to like excessively verbal. But that would be a kind of a fascinating community to be able to expand into also at some point.
Yes, we actually had a school for the deaf participating in Globe from New York City.
Yeah.
Tina, you had you worked with them too, right? Along with
Rosalba.
Rosalba. Right. Yes. There we are. Oh, Martele, you're here too. Yes. So but I think the educator left, right? Did she go somewhere else and they
She
haven't
changed to a different school, but she's still working with deaf students, I believe.
Okay, but maybe not to a Globe.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
It was interesting because with another school with low vision and blind students, we did the tactile cloud chart that Tina Ballinger and Rosalba worked on. And it was interesting how they got it just by touching the different materials, which clouds would impact most the radiation budget, or like reflect more of that sunlight or cast shadows, however you want to say it. So that was a really cool experience.
Yes. And I just remember, and I didn't even think of these things, right? Where Rosalba and the educator and the students were teaching me that they had to make up science words, right? Or there's a different language challenges, because those direct words don't necessarily exist, in the science vocabulary. I think there's a whole dictionary of science sign language.
Fascinating. Yeah.
But now it's a few years ago, and I feel like as I age, I forget some of the details that I need to look things up again. I think that's true though. All right. So I just want to make sure I mention two things. Number one, there's a really nice story published about Tracy. If everyone got a chance to read it, we know that you retired. Surprise, Tracy. We know that you retired. We appreciate all that you've done for Globe. So we just wanted to acknowledge that. And so we did publish just a little thank you, basically, and a little acknowledgement of all the ways you've contributed to Globe. So thank you for that. And one of your educators, we have some words from her in there. One of the educators that you assisted over time. So everyone should check that out. And the second thing is that we did, in case anybody missed it, the yearbook came out. And so look at your page and check it out. And we tried to track all, everyone submitted the accomplishments of their partnerships over 30 years. And so we also tried to add in other perspectives from Globe over the 30 years, in particular the SRS, and also the U.S. Partner Forum, and that historical just acknowledgement of all the people that have been part of those particular things. So I just want to make sure that I mention those two things. And I hope that all of you read the story and check out the yearbook, because we're really proud of it. And kudos to Alicia. Alicia took all of your information that you submitted for your Globe partnership and made this beautiful yearbook. She worked really hard on organizing it, thought really hard, agonized over part of it. So I just want to acknowledge Alicia for all of her hard work on that, and actually for many years doing the yearbook. But this year was especially important, I think, with the changes upcoming. So I think it was great to capture those, whatever has happened over the 30 years. So with that, yes, Tracy, and we do have some time, so.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to share this because we just don't often hear about this. So, yesterday I was on an advisory board meeting for a career tech ed organization at my old school. And I'm on the board, we're on the meeting, it's all Zoom, and I see this person in the square, the tiny little square. And I'm going, oh, who's that? What? And I read the name and it's Michael Wong. And I'm like, well, that name's familiar. That face looks familiar. Anyway, he's one of my old students, right? Who did Globe and always had a smile. He was the first person to get the equipment. I remember him. You go through thousands of students when you teach, but here you have this student who, really appreciated the academy, appreciated what he did with Globe. And, we all introduced ourselves, and he said, yeah, I want to give back. I just want to give back. I had such a great experience in this academy. I want to show students, now and this was 10, I don't even know how old he is. I told him, I chatted with him. I said, you're all grown up. It's like, oh my God. So we're going to connect in a few weeks, but question is there any kind of active alumni kind of thing that I can connect them with, or should I just kind of connect them, you know, myself kind of stuff?
I think definitely connect them yourself.
Okay.
We do have the alumni group,
Mhm.
and so you can apply to be part of the alumni group.
Okay.
I don't know how much communication they're having right now or how active, but I
Yeah.
think he should definitely like get his name in there.
Yeah.
Because I
Okay.
think you can still join that group. Again,
Yeah.
I'm just not sure,
Yeah.
what's next.
Yeah,
Um,
he went through the whole, project kind of thing. And I think, that when you get somebody who wants to give back, you want to like, okay, here's how you can give back kind of stuff.
so
But,
he could also join the GISN.
oh, that's
Um,
true. Yeah.
Yeah, so if he wants to join the GISN, I do know that we actually got notified that somebody joined the US GISN list.
Okay.
So we're still approving those, it looks like. So I think
Okay.
that that's another thing that could happen as well.
Great suggestion. Yeah, great suggestion. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think I was just kind of blown away, and we connected immediately outside of Zoom, and great kid. Well, adult,
Yeah,
whatever.
no, I hear you. I hear you. You run into those students, you're like, why are you so tall?
Yeah, right. And
Why do you have a beard?
there's a kid that was in our fourth grade Globe Cat class for a long time, and he out of the blue, wanted my email so he could connect with a NASA aerospace engineer, and Angie's husband is going to be connecting with him next month.
Oh,
And, you know, those are just so what a treat to hear about kids who want to, and he was again, he as a fourth grader, he was again like, I'll be equipment manager, kind of stuff, right? So he's just a real good kid. And I remember him too, fourth grade. He's now in high school looking at colleges, right? So, I mean, it's just such an impact. We don't hear all the time how much this work impacts students. And I just wanted to share those stories with everybody because you just never know who you're gonna touch, whether it's a camp or a formal educators, students or whatever. Because I think it's just a great thing to happen. That's what's nice, long lasting about Globe.
yes, I agree. And all of you, in case I don't say it enough, are making an impact on our youth and our communities. And I really, truly appreciate it. And I feel very lucky to work with such incredible colleagues. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for contributing and for sharing your work. I think it makes the days really special when I get to spend it with amazing people like you. So with my last minute, I'm going to thank Michael for all of his great work, all his contributions, and for sharing it with us. And thank you for everyone for coming today. And I hope you have a great, tomorrow's Friday. So have a great weekend, everyone.